Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Tuesday, September the 24th. We are a week away from October. That being said, Toronto Maple Leafs news, Calle Jarnkrok, lower body injury for him. He is day-to-day. The one to keep an eye on, though, is Austin Matthews, right? He has an upper body injury. It's considered day-to-day as well. Again, we're not going to hear a lot about injuries during the preseason, so we'll see how long Matthews is out. One thing to keep in mind is with preseason being just preseason, you're going to take it easy with guys who have aches and pains that you might make them play through during the regular season. Patrik Laine had a pretty strong debut for Montreal last night. He did not get on the score sheet, but he did have 5 shots in his debut for Montreal. So if Laine's getting shots on the net at a rate of about 5 per game, the puck's going to start going in the net, which is good news for Montreal. So we'll see if he can keep up that shot rate. So with restricted free agency now not being as big an issue as it was, it really highlights that we only have 2 players left who are restricted free agents. Jeremy Swayman of the Boston Bruins and Alexandrov for St. Louis. You got to think Alexandrov probably not asking for the moon here. And Swayman, we know that there's this whole back and forth. And at this point in time, it doesn't look like there's any solution necessarily on the horizon as Ryan Whitney and Don Sweeney have a little back and forth going on. Elias Lindholm is day-to-day. It's not seen as anything major. Again, it's something to keep an eye on. And Max Jones is day-to-day as well. I didn't see what the injuries necessarily are, just that they're out day-to-day. For Boston, of course, they've invested heavily in Lindholm. They need him to be 100%, and they need him to have a bounce-back season. The Boston Bruins' depth down the middle I thought was a weakness of theirs this past season. Adding Lindholm is meant to help to turn that around. And so we'll see how Lindholm does, how many games he gets into for the preseason, and all that fun stuff. For the Washington Capitals, tonight, Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to make his preseason debut for the Washington Capitals. He's saying all the right things about his excitement level, but I don't know that he's going to be excited as the Protas brothers, who have the chance to take to the ice. Alexei and Ilya playing together on National Hockey League ice for the first time, so that's great news. And, yeah, we'll see how things go. And if they have good chemistry together, you just never know. It might give Washington something to think about. Not necessarily to start the season, but maybe later on in the season, right? So, yeah, we'll see how things go. So before we got into training camp, it was announced that Ilya Sorokin would probably miss the first few days of camp. We are now almost a week into camp, and Sorokin still has not been spotted at practice. The one thing that's been said about Sorokin is that he has been on the ice, but they're not answering whether or not he's been taking shots and what kind of drills he's running. So a lot of secrecy around Sorokin. It's still not expected to be a major injury. He should be ready to go to start the season. The good news, of course, for Islander fans being that Varlamov had a very strong season, and so there's not really any reason to be overly concerned with the Islanders if Sorokin can't necessarily play or can't play as many games as usual because of injury. They do have Varlamov. They also have Keith Kincaid at camp. So, I mean, you know, Kincaid at times has jumped in and looked okay over the last few years. So we'll see what happens with the Islanders and with Sorokin. So Cole Perfetti signed his contract with Winnipeg and apparently is quite happy about it. Saying that he added strength over the summer, and he's saying he added 7 or 8 pounds of muscle. So, again, this is where the comment section, you guys can just chime in on 7 or 8 pounds of muscle and how much work goes into that, and I am sure it's a ton. But that being said, he's looking to make a big jump. He's hoping to get a better opportunity to play further up in the lineup, and he wants to experience a big jump in production, basically to, you know, turn this contract he just signed into one that springboards him to something much, much bigger a year down the road when he's able to sign an extension, because let's hope they don't let this one go the full 2 years and then go through this again that summer after the 2-year contract's done. But Perfetti, a really good young forward who is expected to be a top 6 forward for the Jets. Maybe he gets there this year. So big night in Utah last night. They play their first game at the Delta Center. Keller scores at overtime, 19 seconds into overtime, apparently unassisted as well. So that's great. Clayton Keller's a star player, and Utah wins its first preseason game at home 3-2 against the LA Kings. So good news for Utah. It's a feel-good story. They are officially considered to be an expansion team, of course. So when you look them up on the app, you'll notice that every team has a record from last year except Utah. Utah just shows dashes rather than a record because they don't consider this to be a continuation of the Arizona franchise, which brings us to the item at the bottom of the board. Gary Bettman, not happy with expansion questions right now. Apparently quite irritated that he was asked expansion questions today, saying that expansion is not coming soon. So the rumor had been that the Board of Governors would sit down and look at an expansion process, opening up the expansion process. Andy Strickland reported that. Kevin Weeks jumped on that as well and said he had heard that we were going to get to 34 or 36 teams at some point, saying he believed that would come to pass. What's interesting is there's two updates on this same item, in that Bettman saying expansion's not coming, and he'll update the Board of Governors on October the 1st on cities showing interest in joining the National Hockey League. And there may be more to this. And Tillman Fertitta, sitting down and taking questions, and he was very careful with how he phrased the answer. Tillman Fertitta, of course, the owner of the Houston Rockets, wants the National Hockey League. This has been a known thing for a while. And when he was asked about the process and, you know, how much he wants the National Hockey League team, he did answer in saying he wanted a team in Houston, but he also mentions the price for joining the National Hockey League being a little bit too high for his liking. So it is possible, you can extrapolate from that the NHL might have gone to cities and said, hey, here's the fee for joining the NHL. And maybe Houston looked at that and said, that's too high. We can't do that. The rumor had been $1 billion. That had been the rumor, that it'd be $1 billion, maybe north of $1 billion. And so Tillman might be looking at that expansion fee and saying, it's not worth it. So at any rate, Bettman's irritated, probably been getting this question a lot. Probably tired of being asked about expansion every time he goes out there. But we know the league's going to expand. It's just a matter of when. And maybe it's a matter of adjusting how much that expansion fee is going to be. Because Tillman says, you know, he hopes that just the fact that Houston is such a big market will help to change the National Hockey League's mind. And that for the right price, he wants a team in Houston. So it definitely sounds like the NHL might be overextending themselves a little bit in terms of what they think they can get for an expansion fee. And they might need to adjust that down. So we'll see what happens. But at this point, it doesn't look like expansion's opening up on October the 1st. Gary Bettman quite irritated with the question, so we'll see how things go in the upcoming months. But the fact that you have a guy who has clearly been courting the National Hockey League, very careful in the way that he phrases his answer, come out and say, you know, the price is a little bit high right now. Tells you that the NHL has some work left to do on this. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think a $1 billion fee is too high? If that is what they're looking to charge for an expansion fee, and again, if the expansion fee is not high enough, the NHL owners might be like, it's not really worth it to us. Because I've seen people asking, well, you know, why would the owners do that? Well, if it's $1 billion times 2, it's a lot of money that's split between 32 different owners, and people who have a lot of money like to have more money. So we'll see how it all turns out. But at this point in time, it sounds like expansion is on the back burner. My expectation has always been towards the end of this decade, I think we see some sort of an expansion take place. It's around 2030. And then maybe, you know, 5 years after that, we see expansion again. But we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event that you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.